You know, it's truly not every day that you get to make one of your childhood dreams come true. But that is something that I seek to do now that I'm in a more position of success, I guess you could say, with my YouTube channel and have more financial backing. This is something I've sought to do in my adulthood on the whole, hence my game collection, game console collection, fascination with tech gadgets, and this whole YouTube channel, basically. But with this computer build, I have created the ultimate machine that I would have killed for back in the early 2000s. Meet Agunimon. This is an early 2000s era inspired computer build while still using slightly modern parts. Back in spring to summer of last year, 2017, I got a huge game lot of mostly early 2000s PC games from my great uncle, who can no longer play them on his modern rig, no longer really needs or wants to play them, and saw me posting about my collection and wanted to contribute. It was one of the biggest haul opening videos I've ever done, and I am incredibly grateful for that contribution to my collection. They don't fit in my main game collection down here. They're actually sitting on shelves in our upstairs hallway outside my studio room. And I wanted to be able to play them as well as my collection of older games, and so I sought out to build the ultimate Windows XP rig while still keeping it affordable and being able to powerfully play all of the games and do what I wanted to do. And this is where this build might actually divide people a little bit, because I started out, I truly wanted to keep era aesthetics appropriate, or era appropriate aesthetics. I wanted the trashy early 2000s look, so I covered it in stickers, which is gonna really make some people mad, but that is what I would have done back then. That is what I loved back then. But I also wanted it to be powerful, because I see a lot of retro computer builds and things like that where they're like, this is what I would have had back in this year. It may not run things amazingly, but it does good enough. And good enough is never good enough, if you ask me. I wanted things to be able to run at full maximum settings, especially with a couple CRT monitors that I have and a couple that I am seeking out, which I'll touch on in a moment. And I wanted it to be able to do other things. So for this build, we actually went with the AMD AM3 Plus platform. So I have an ASUS Crosshair 4 and an AMD FX-6300, which is a 6-core processor donated to the channel, or actually I bought it from him, so it wasn't donated, but bought off my buddy from the Discord server, link in the description below, Horse Taco, who's done some camera work when I was at IEM and other things. So a pretty powerful platform, but the reason I chose AM3 Plus specifically was it was kind of the last era of CPU architecture that I could find that still had reliable Windows XP drivers. And this is the important part here, is I wanted to be able to use Windows XP, and that was kind of the qualifying factor for me determining this, was I wanted as powerful as I could go affordably while keeping XP support. I could have gone the full AMD FX-9590 like what is in my fiance's rig, but that would honestly be kind of wasteful, because that would be too much power for what I would do in Windows XP, and it'd be a lot more expensive. And then we went, that Crosshair 4 board, Horse Taco actually went ahead and updated the BIOS. It does support AM3 Plus with a BIOS update. Good to go there. For the graphics card, a Gigabyte WindForce AMD Radeon, actually it was an ATI I believe, Radeon 7850, which is pretty powerful, has 2 gigs of VRAM I believe, and stays really quiet, but it is a 2-slot card and requires PCIe power. But that is actually what I ended up going with. That kind of line of cards, there's a couple more powerful ones with XP drivers, but I figured that one was powerful enough for everything I'm driving to get the high frame rates I want, and it has Windows XP drivers. I was super stoked. And then I picked up the Creative Audigy, Sound Blaster Audigy EX, which I kind of screwed up here, because the really cool thing about this sound card is it has a separate audio interface. So it has some audio connections in the back, but it also has a full audio interface with optical pass-through, RCA inputs, full 1/4 inch headphone jack, volume dials, and everything. The one I was looking at, which is not the EX version, has a 5 1/4 bay slot that the interface goes into, which was really freaking cool. But the one I got, EX, is for external, so it has an external interface, which is fine. Like, at first I was really confused. I tried to force it to install, it didn't fit right. I was really confused. That's why. So it just sits up top, but honestly that looks pretty cool. The fact that we still had really nice external audio interfaces for like consumer audio hardware back then. Pretty neat. And then I picked up an Icey dock for 4 SSD hot swap tray for the 5¼ inch bay, expecting to get a different one. I don't know if I still don't know if I ever looked into whether I was sent the wrong one or I ordered the wrong one. I'm pretty sure I ordered the wrong one. Phil's Computer Lab reviewed one where it actually had manual switches to switch between the SSDs, and this is what I wanted. I wanted different OSs on each SSD and to just switch between them. Somehow I managed to order the wrong one to where it was just 4 hot swap bays with no switching, and I didn't figure it out until, I didn't build it until after 30 days after I ordered it. I'd already taken it out and installed it, so it wasn't worth returning. I just have to, slightly pull out the drive trays of whichever OS I'm not using. And then Kingston actually sent out one of their new SSDs to be my main Windows XP drive, and it's a 500 gig, so I had to partition out, I think, an 8 gigabyte partition for the actual XP installation, and then there's the 400 something partition for the games. And I have installed so many games that I eventually just gave up on installing because I got so bored of it. All of the games that I thought I would ever play from that haul of PC games from that part of the collection, as well as all of them that I had in my own disc binder, I installed all of them. The start menu just completely goes off the screen and it's unusable. I'm gonna have to do a lot of maintenance to actually organize everything and keep the shortcuts in line. But I installed all of those, and I still have like 200 something gigabytes free on the SSD. It is, so crazy how small games used to be, of course. I am at some point going to go through my Steam library and install what games I can there. There's no easy filter to filter by just DirectX 9 support or operating system support, so version of Windows support. So that's gonna be a little tedious since I have such a big Steam library, but at some point I'll fill in some games from there. But this thing is a boss. For case, I just went with some basic Logisys case. It was, again, era appropriate theme, has a crappy window to it, had a blue LED fan that I actually took out because it was a little too loud. I picked up a red LED Intermax fan that goes on the back, looks obnoxious as hell. My Crucial Ballistic Tracer RAM from my very first YouTube computer build worked perfectly there. Has little activity indicator red LEDs across it that lights up the window of the case. Again, looks trashy now, but would have been so badass in the early 2000s. And then I think that's a basic ViewSonic power supply. And this is an awesome build. The Mac Daddy of this setup are the displays that I will be using with it. Primarily just because I'm using a tiny table. Like once we have a bigger living space, I'm going to have a dedicated setup for this and do a little bit of changes, and you'll see upgrade videos on that, but that'll be when we move into a house, and who knows when that will be. But currently I'm using a ViewSonic V277F, I believe. The model number show up here. Nice little 17-inch, 15-inch CRT monitor. Pretty standard looking, but it supports really cool resolutions and refresh rates. And this is why I wanted powerful hardware to be able to drive this, because this setup can do some amazing things. This monitor can do 100 hertz at 1024 by 768. It can do 85 hertz at 1600 by 1200, which is a pretty big resolution, and can go all the way up to 1800 by 1440 at 60 hertz, which is an insanely high resolution that the Windows XP desktop is like unusable at, but it looks so good. And then if I drop it down to, super lower resolutions for certain games, I can push 200 hertz out of this monitor sometimes, which is insane. But I have another monitor. It's just way bigger. It's a 21 or 24 inch monitor from Impressions. It's a 100 VX or something, a brand I had never heard of. I actually bought a set of 2 off of someone from my CRT collective group, and one of them was destroyed in shipping, unfortunately. I've always wanted a set of matching high-end CRTs, and this was gonna be it. I paid a pretty penny for it. They weigh 70 pounds each, and UPS destroyed one. So I only have one, but this thing can do similar resolutions, but should be able to push higher refresh rates out of it. Still has the VGA input and has a dedicated input instead of a forcibly attached cable like most CRTs, and it has RGB HV input as well. I don't think it supports 15 kilohertz from consoles, but it would support stronger connections out of that, like the FW900 widescreen monitor I'm still hunting down. So this is my younger self, early 2000s dream PC, named Agunimon for the Digimon and the red theme and whatever. Stickered the hell out of it, ordered so many stickers. I have a huge collection of, well, I had a decent collection of stickers, but I wanted some more. Again, that's something that would like tick people off, but I still love stickering things, but I definitely would have stickered the hell out of it back then. And I think it adds to the early 2000s charm. It looks really cool, runs great. I've been having such a blast playing these older games, playing them at, you know, settings and situations that I never would have been able to play before, and just building the PC that I would have loved to have had back then. It's been amazing, and it was affordable. Like, I did not spend all that much on this build. Like I said, you don't always get to make your childhood dreams come true, but when you can, it's a lot of fun. It's been great. Now, a couple notes for future expansion. Like I said, this is a ongoing project. This is something that I'm going to maintain. This is not a setup I'm just building and then getting rid of. Like, I am keeping this around, and it's going to have its own dedicated space once I have a bigger workspace and able to set up multiple setups. The SSD switcher is so I can do a couple things. I installed Windows Vista on one of them because there are a couple Windows Vista requiring older games that I might want to play on the CRT. I installed Linux on one in case I just want to do general experimenting, and then I installed Windows 8.1 Pro on one of the SSDs. That way, because I need to capture MiniDV tapes. I have a huge set of MiniDV tapes from a camcorder I had when I was younger that I need to capture and digitize, and I can't do it on modern stuff. Like, it just won't read the tapes on our modern systems on Windows 10. Premiere just doesn't like it. So I have set up Windows 8.1 with Premiere to read that through the firewire connection, of which I have like 3 or 4, because there's one built into the motherboard. I originally installed a firewire card before I realized that. The sound card has one on the card and on the interface, so easy to connect and set that up. Speaking of that sound card, that breakout interface is amazing. The audio quality is great, the features are great, but that optical pass-through and the RCA input, plus the ability to run analog connections out of the graphics card, mean at some point I really want to get or set up one of my PVMs, one of my professional CRT TVs next to the PC CRT, so that I could run like the PS2 and then run the audio to the interface, so I can play and enjoy everything at once with a little mini mixer there in the headphones, which would be really cool. As I said, this has been an amazing project. I've spent months on it, just building up the parts and putting it together and then installing games for hours upon hours upon hours. But it's been awesome. Even Warframe. I've put like 100 hours into Warframe. Warframe runs on Windows XP. Of course, it's DirectX 9. Graphics look a little lower, but I get to run it at high refresh on a high refresh monitor, and it plays really smooth. So thank you so much to your all support on the channel that have allowed me to do fun projects like this. This is what these are my goals, to be able to do stuff like this, and I am super grateful. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this build and project. I certainly had a blast with it. Subscribe for more awesome tech videos. I'm EposVox, here to make tech easier and more fun. I'll see you in the next one. If you have any ideas for future fun, different build projects that you would like to see, comment down below. Otherwise, have a great day.
This video is sponsored by viewers like you. Our videos would not be possible without the generosity of those of you who contribute to one of our fan funding options, be it donor box, Twitch subscriptions, direct contributions via PayPal, or Patreon. To join our inner circle and get behind the scenes looks at videos, go to eposvox.com/support to learn more, and join us on Discord at eposvox.com/discord. Thanks.